Hello, you're on the Ruslan Bailov channel, and today we're going to discuss the situation in Ukraine as of July 6, 2025. A massive number of very interesting events took place today, so let's get started. Today, for example, another strike was carried out on the town of Kremenchuk. Here we have footage from objective control showing the aftermath of the strike, smoke rising, black clouds, serious damage, and a fire. A bit later, more footage appeared, clearly showing that the Russian side used drones in broad daylight to strike almost the center of Kremenchuk. It later became known that the strike targeted a territorial recruitment center, specifically a mobilization center. These buildings are responsible for organizing conscription. In this case, it's likely the mobilization center for the entire district. The Russian side struck during the day so that Ukrainian citizens, especially those in Kremenchuk, would clearly see the attack and its consequences. The building was destroyed, likely containing paper documents, safes full of euros and dollars. A very interesting target indeed. This is not the first strike on TRC facilities in recent weeks. If we look at the updates since the beginning of June, several days ago for example, a strike was carried out on the town of Poltava. That strike occurred on July 3rd, just a few days ago. According to open sources, that strike targeted safes that contained large amounts of money from Ukrainian citizens, who possibly bribed their way out of conscription. That might not be possible anymore. Again, the strike occurred in daylight, so the citizens could witness it. And analyzing various online comments and posts on social media, one can conclude that some Ukrainian citizens are actually pleased to see such scenes. Many Ukrainians are generally satisfied with what's happening, not condemning these Russian strikes at all. Some even support them. Another similar strike occurred a few days ago in Kryvyi Rih. That one happened on June 30th. Again, according to open sources, it targeted a TRC facility, also during the daytime. The idea is clear: make sure people see the strike and spread the word. This is an important part of media warfare, a form of psychological pressure on the Ukrainian side. It seems such strikes will now happen regularly. Now let's move to the North Kupiansk direction, or the northeastern sector of Kharkiv region. Very interesting developments are unfolding there. In fact, some of the most incredible news today comes from this front. Like a bolt from the blue, the Russian Ministry of Defense reported that units from the West Group had cleared and taken full control of the settlement of Sobolevka. This is the village of Sobolevka. If you look at the map, it's clear something major is unfolding. Sobolevka is not on the northwest or west outskirts. It's more to the southwest of Kupiansk. Based on the current map configuration, it's evident that Kupiansk is now encircled. It's not yet a cauldron, but it's close to operational encirclement. Definitely a serious situation. Now, before going further, you should understand that today's report about Sobolevka's capture was met with deep skepticism from nearly all bloggers and military experts. Complete disbelief, I would say 100% disbelief, because it's hard to trust your eyes without proof. Moreover, the Ministry of Defense and pro-Russian sources, including affiliates with the West grouping, have stopped publishing any geolocated footage from the area for a long time. The last confirmed geolocation came from Kondrashivka. We can check updates since June 1st. The last published geolocation was from June 6, 2025, nearly a month ago. That was the last confirmed update used by most mapmakers. We saw a unit raising the Russian flag in the square of Kondrashivka, clearly geolocated. That was the last point confirmed. South of that, all reports have been solely from the Russian Ministry of Defense, without any geo-confirmation. There was a report of Radkivka being cleared, possibly in late May. Then on June 20th, the MOD reported clearing the settlement of Moskovka. The Ukrainian side renamed it to Merov, but in old Soviet-era maps it's called Moskovka. Again, there were no geo-located confirmations. We discussed this before, wondering if it was even real. And today there's another report of Russian forces moving south of Moskovka to Sobolevka, allegedly taking it fully. Now everyone is eagerly waiting, hoping that the Russian MOD will at least release one geolocation to make it believable. South of Kondrashivka, below the red line you now see on the map, most map updates have relied solely on Russian MOD reports. We've seen this before in areas like Siversk, where reports about Serednyanka and Verkhnekamenskoye turned out to be incorrect. So now the news about Sobolevka is treated with deep skepticism. Some experts even suspect the MOD may have confused Sobolevka with Radkivka or Holubivka. Others, who claim to have contacts on the ground, say that Russian forces are indeed about to finish clearing both those settlements. Here's my take. If June 20th's Moskovka report had been the only one, I might have believed it was a naming mistake. But two reports in the same direction? That's unlikely. So what does this give the Russian army? Clearly, we're looking at a semi-encirclement, possibly operational, of Ukrainian forces in Kupiansk and the surrounding agglomeration. The city is already being encircled from the north, northwest, and west. Russian troops are close to Highway H-26, possibly already controlling it. South of Sobolevka, there's a large forested area, which may also be under Russian control. Even more importantly, if we check updates since June 1st, we'll see daily objective control footage from the Oskil River crossings southeast of Sobolevka. These clips are posted almost daily. Russian forces have established 24-hour control over these crossings in the Kupiansk railway hub area, launching strikes every 6 to 12 hours. These appear to be preventative. Perhaps no confirmed enemy movement, but strikes are delivered anyway. Regular shelling like this discourages any Ukrainian efforts to cross the river. It's been going on for a full month. These are not duplicate hits. They fall in the same area repeatedly. There's no visible equipment. Strikes are intended to suppress movement. The goal, prevent use of the Sadova-Kupiansk line for logistics. And that's not the only location. Slightly south, between Osinov and Kupiansk rail junction, the same situation. The bridges built by Ukraine since 2022 are being hit by bombs, rockets, artillery and drones. Round the clock. The aim is clear: prevent their use for reinforcement, evacuation or transport. To summarize, Sobolevka may already be physically controlling the H-26 highway between Hrushkivka and the Kupiansk area. One river crossing is controlled just south of that. Another crossing is hit repeatedly a bit farther south. All roads into Kupiansk are under tight fire control, often just to show capability. To say, don't even think about using these routes. So what's Ukraine doing? A few days ago I noticed something strange, and now it's clear. Ukraine knows they can't regain order here, so they're striking Russian units along the Kolyasnikivka, Krylyakivka, Bohuslavka line. This salient has been under heavy fire from Ukraine for 2 weeks. Since early this month, and even before that, Ukraine is trying hard to cut it off. Some mapping services have already recolored the area along the Oskil River in Ukraine's favor, especially around Kolyasnikivka's fortified points. A few days ago, by the way, there were also objective control footage confirming the presence of Ukrainian units at this location. You may recall, we also wondered how Ukrainian soldiers even got there. At the time, we assumed they may have crossed what remains of the Oskil River from the direction of Sinkivka, landed there and gained a foothold. However, most cartographers eventually mapped the route approximately like this. The settlements of Novokruhlyakivka, Bohuslavka and Zahrizove are under full control of the armed forces of Ukraine. And these counterattacks are continuing. We can see that the counterattacks are coming both from the north and from the south. The main objective for the armed forces of Ukraine is to completely cut off this salient and give at least some breathing room toward the Kupiansk agglomeration, to restore supplies, lifelines, and ensure the continued functioning of the Kupiansk region. Because if the Russian side manages to repel all attacks aimed at this bridgehead, then, assuming the report about Sobolevka is accurate, there will be virtually no chance left to hold Kupiansk. It would simply become a matter of time, 1, 2 or 3 weeks or months, and Kupiansk will come fully under the control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. So we wait and hope, of course, that the Russian Ministry of Defense in the coming days or week will provide at least some geolocation evidence to confirm the advance of Russian units both in the settlement of Moskovka and in Sobolevka. Next, we move south. Let's begin, or rather continue, with the Siversk section, where Russian forces are also continuing their offensive. For the second day in a row now, various independent mostly pro-Russian experts are reporting multiple incursions by Russian units into the northeastern and eastern outskirts of Siversk. In essence, the battle for the city itself is underway. Of course, there are no geolocations yet, and we're in no rush to update the map, but for the second day in a row, we're hearing that Russian troops are entering the town. The fighting is reportedly taking place for the high-rise buildings and urban areas, mainly between Ukrainian troops and Russian reconnaissance and sabotage groups. But the frequency and consistency of these reports suggest that full-scale combat is imminent. Although, if we look at the map, the fighting for Serhiyivka and Novoselivka hasn't concluded yet. Those are still ahead. But we're already hearing reports like these. Now let's move on to the Kostiantynivka front. The main activity today is taking place along the line between Oleksandr Shultin and Bila Hora. This area has the highest number of confirmed geolocations. Here they all are. The level of intensity and the variety of geolocations, from drone strikes to artillery preparation to airstrikes, indicates that the Russian side is likely preparing for a final operation to eliminate the Shultin-Bilahorivka pocket. In other words, a full-scale offensive is now underway here, aimed at eliminating this salient and pushing Ukrainian units out of it. Let me remind you that a few days ago, the Russian Ministry of Defense reported the complete clearing of Pride Tekin, although there was no objective control footage at the time. And as we discussed earlier, all the Ukrainian defensive lines in this area are designed to repel attacks from the south and east, not from the north. And now, perhaps, we are witnessing the final hours, days, or maybe weeks of this Ukrainian bridgehead along the Siversky-Donetsk-Donbass Canal. We should expect adjustments very soon. Perhaps even the complete removal of this salient from the map and a realignment of the front line along the eastern and southeastern outskirts of Kostiantynivka. Next, we move on to the southern Donetsk and Dnipropetrovsk directions. Today there are map adjustments here as well, confirmed by very reliable sources. Let's take a look at how the map has changed over the past 24 hours. This is what the map looked like just yesterday. As usual, there are many geolocations and numerous reports. There have been multiple frontline breakthroughs, from Tolstoy to Voskresenka and Malivka. And today we receive objective control footage published by the Vostok East grouping of forces. Specifically, these are the visuals. The video is 1 minute and 43 seconds long. In this footage, we can clearly and concisely observe how the battle for this settlement unfolded, from artillery preparation to FPV drone strikes, and finally the retreat of Ukrainian soldiers. In the final seconds, we see numerous Russian flags raised in various parts of the settlement. Based on this footage, as well as the report from the Russian Ministry of Defense, a major map adjustment is made. The presence of multiple flags confirms the full and confident control of the settlement of Podobny by the Russian armed forces. Moreover, today we've received reports of further Russian advances toward the settlement of Myrna, or Karl Marx as per the old Soviet name. Additionally, pro-Ukrainian cartographers from the Deep State team report that fighting has begun for the village of Tolstoy. Some cartographers have already nearly completely marked Tolstoy as being under Russian control. There is a very high probability that by tomorrow both the Ministry of Defense and the Vostok grouping of forces will release corresponding materials and statements, confirming that this is now the most extensive bridgehead on the Ukrainian side of the Mokry-Yaly River. And of course, once Tolstoy falls, the Ukrainian armed forces will have no chance of holding Myrna, and very likely Voskresenka will also be abandoned. Furthermore, today some pro-Russian cartographers have already partially marked Voskresenka as being under Russian control, about 10 to 15% of the village approximately. The advance will likely continue toward Velika Mikhailivka and the remaining settlements in this section of the Donetsk region. All in all, in this western section of the Donetsk region, not the northern part, we're now down to just a handful of remaining settlements. And that's all for now, dear friends. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and all the best to you.